Hey, welcome to the TEConnect podcast. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Riverman.
Dean, we're going to do it again. We're going to talk some tech bites.
Yes, sir.
When we run out of other topics to talk about, can't get a guest for this week.
We accumulate information over time.
I love these episodes. These are some of my favorite episodes.
Yes.
Where we get to just talk about like some water cooler stuff. Like,
well, and it's appropriate because we went back to the office now, right?
That's a good point.
we are literally back at the water cooler and we need some topics to talk to people about. That's what we're doing here.
And yet I don't ever go to the water cooler and talk to people.
But that's just you.
That's true. I'm a bit of a misanthrope like that. So
you're worried about the germs. You're worried about,
If you're inclined to go have a conversation around a water cooler, here's some, we're going to talk about some stories and topics and talking points that maybe you can discuss. So
that's right.
Just a quick little overview of some stuff we're getting into. We're going to talk about the most sinful cities in America.
What? I was unaware that we were going to talk about that today.
Number one shouldn't be hard to figure out, but we'll get into a little more detail.
Fair enough.
We're going to talk about things like technology breakthroughs for the year, the 4-day work week, the latest in AI, because we just can't stop talking about AI.
Talking about AI. You know, we all need to stay abreast of that.
Yeah, I wonder if like all this stuff, these conversations we're having about AI, like if they're just going to age really badly.
They're going to age
by
really
the end
badly.
of the year. We're just going to look back on this stuff and go like, well, we were just wrong about everything.
I don't even know that we need till the end of the year. It could be like
that's
in
a good
2-3
point.
months.
It could be by the summer. Yeah,
absolutely.
We're going to talk about remote work, U.S. migration patterns, and digital piracy. We had a jam-packed episode.
That and it's like some TEConnecting and stuff like that in there?
Of course, the usual TEConnecting. We'll figure out some kind of value to the VAR here other than just, you should know what's going on in the world.
We're going to have fun for an hour.
That's right.
If not longer and really make Marco mad.
Exactly. Because, again, we're just unchained here. Like, just, it's just me and Dean unleashed.
Unchained.
That's right. TEConnect podcast. Yeah, Unchained. There we go. Yeah.
There you go.
I like it. So all the usual stuff. Let's just get to it. It's time to plug in and get connected.
Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. It's time to get connected.
All right, Dean, let's get into it.
Let's talk about stuff.
Let's kick it off and get started with our first topic here. So, yes, the most sinful cities in America.
I have not looked at this article.
You and I
are
anything. Always big fans of like these weird lists of most this, top
and
that.
I need to know the methodology.
Okay,
you got it.
Of course, I got the methodology for you here. That's the first. That was the most important thing for me too. As soon as I pull this up, I'm like, all right, where's the methodology?
What is the sin that we're doing here?
So this is a Wallet Hub article. It says in order to determine the most sinful cities in America, Wallet Hub compared 182 cities, including the 150 most populated U.S. cities.
Okay, fair enough.
Plus at least 2 of the most populated cities in each state across 7 key dimensions. And essentially, these are the 7 deadly sins. Number 1, anger and hatred, jealousy, excesses and vices, greed, lust, vanity, and laziness.
Wow.
These are your 7 parameters.
There you go.
It's the 7 sins, essentially.
Okay.
So they basically scored these from a score of 1 to 100 for each city.
Give me those one more time. I mean, I got the normal ones.
Anger and hatred.
Anger and hatred. Okay.
Jealousy.
Okay.
Excesses and vices.
Well, right. Living in excess.
Right.
Yeah, got it.
Greed.
Yes, of course.
Lust.
That's right.
Vanity. Laziness.
Okay. All right.
So
gosh, man,
pretty straightwe'll here.
Yeah,
so that's your methodology here.
It sounds like this. It's like, how sinful am I? I don't know. Maybe
we'll score ourselves when we're done here. So it should be absolutely no surprise whatsoever that Las Vegas is number 1.
Okay, well that's fair.
It comes in a composite score of 59.93. It scored very high on
greed,
anger and hatred and jealousy, but especially excess and vices.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
It's no wait. I take that back. I'm looking at this backwards because the way they score this is the lower number is I think the higher on the list that it is. All right. Anyway. So, greed, lust, vanity, laziness. Greed, lust, and vanity in particular. It was in the top 5 of all of those categories. Completely makes sense. It is a city filled with greed.
Now, I will contest this a little bit before you go on.
Okay.
Because Las Vegas, is it the people that live in Las Vegas that are sinful, or is it the people that are coming in that make it?
That's a good question.
Because it's got to be the people coming in. Because everybody going in, those top 3 things are the reason why they're going in.
That's a good question. Like, just because you live in Vegas doesn't mean mean you're
doesn't
like
mean that
greedy.
you
Like,
are going to
you're
hell.
not,
Basically,
you're not going to the casino every day when you live
mean,
there. You're probably
you're-
working at a casino.
you're
if anything.
enabling these things, I guess. If
I
you're
suppose
working
so.
in there and enabling that, I didn't mean to throw you a curveball
No,
there,
no,
but
no,
it's like,
it's
hey,
a good point.
I'm sure there are good people that live in Vegas.
It's you're absolutely right. That's
But all
that's
the
why
people-
you take these kind of surveys with
That's
a grain
right.
of salt.
Well, all the people visiting are either doing those bad, sinful things, or they're going to convention.
Yeah, there you
That's
go.
it.
In which they figure out how to do some bad sinful
That's
things
right,
along the way.
that's right, that's
All right,
right.
let's run through the rest of the top 10 here real quick.
Got it.
At number 2 is St. Louis, Missouri,
What?
which scored at the top, had the highest levels of anger and hatred and excesses and vices. In particular.
Would not
That's-
have guessed
That's
that.
the two that put it near the top. It also was very high on the jealousy scale as well.
What? People are walking around St. Louis jealous and
I
angry?
guess Philadelphia,
Okay.
Houston, Texas,
Interesting.
Atlanta, Georgia, which I think was number 1 for lust and number 2 for jealousy.
What?
Los Angeles, California. People aren't too
vain.
surprised by that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
high on the
vanity.
top on the vanity. Second on lust, I think, on that one for them
Yeah.
too.
All right.
Denver, Colorado, which didn't have any super high scores. The highest it scores on lust, apparently, I guess.
What? Okay.
So, Chicago, Illinois, at number 8. Which was high on the vanity scale. Was what kind of set it a little over. Number 9, to get a little bit, not in the weeds, but maybe one you might not have thought of or expected, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which
Okay.
scored very high on anger and hatred, jealousy, and excesses and vices.
I could see that. Yeah. Okay.
And then finally at number 10, Phoenix, Arizona, which comes in high on the vanity scale.
Yeah.
And otherwise doesn't have
All right,
anything
fair enough.
particularly super
Fair enough,
high.
yeah.
If you're wondering, locally speaking,
Yes.
Cincinnati, our kind of local big city,
We
came
got
in
no
at
sins around
number
here.
31.
Oh, that's a little
We
higher
were-
than I would have thought.
We were particularly high. We were in the top 5 on excesses and vices, which,
What? Top 5?
yeah, I mean, we got some gambling here in the city, but it's
Yeah,
not.
yeah. Excess, I don't know.
Yeah, nothing
We
else
watch
really
too much
scored
sports?
super
Is
high.
that
Everything
it? I
else
don't
was
know.
fairly mid. I don't know.
We do have a lot of breweries, a lot of beer.
Yeah, Cleveland, Ohio came in at number 11, so they were pretty highly ranked on
good.
the list too.
Cleveland rocks. Yeah.
Skimming here, Louisville, Kentucky was at number 39.
Well, so give me the good people. Give me the least
okay. So if we
sinful.
go to the bottom of the
yeah,
list,
where do I have to live in order to be free of
at number
sin?
182 to be the least sinful city, Port St. Lucie, Florida. I mean,
Okay.
it's
Porn
probably
scene,
like some
I
old
don't even
retirement
know.
community
I'm
or
sure
something.
it
I don't
is.
know. Yeah.
You got to watch out for those retired people, though, on the lust factor. I don't know. I've heard about the villages
that's
down
a
in
good
Florida.
point. That's a very good point. The rest of the bottom 5, Bridgeport, Connecticut,
Oh,
Fremont, California, West Valley City, Utah, and Cape Coral, Florida.
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Interesting little list. They do, like most of these surveys, they have some breakdowns of like violent crimes per capita, which goes into the anger and hatred part of it. Which Memphis, Tennessee, it was tied at the top of that list.
Yeah.
With Detroit, St. Louis, Birmingham, and Baltimore.
St. Louis number 2 is really surprising.
Yeah, I
there.
thought so too. Because I've been to St. Louis.
It's a sleepy Midwest town.
Yeah,
It's-
it doesn't
yeah.
feel like there's a very different vibe in Vegas than there is in St. Louis.
Oh,
Let me tell you,
100%. Yeah. The difference between 1 and 2, night and day, if you ask me.
exactly.
Yeah.
Thefts per capita, they break that a little bit too, which Salt Lake City ranked highest on that list. So there's your
interesting.
breakdown of some of and as always, we always have the links to all of these articles and stuff in our show notes. So if you want to dig in a little deeper into some of the stats and what went behind and whatever, they do even break down like some of the various points like anger and hatred. What's included in that? It included things like violent crimes per 1,000 residents, aggravated assault offenses, jealousy included theft, identity theft, and fraud. Excesses and vices include obesity, fast food establishments. Maybe that's why Cincinnati's was high on that list.
Yeah.
Excessive drinking, DUI fatality,
Well, there it is
smokers,
on the drinking
share
side.
of coffee drinkers
Oh.
was included in that.
Yeah.
Marijuana use, opioid use, got a lot of issues with
Yeah.
that in Cincinnati, so maybe that's
100
probably
yes,
what
absolutely.
bumped us up there.
Yeah.
Of course, greed was pretty explanatory. It was a lot of casino stuff, gambling disorders.
sure.
It also weighed charitable donations as a share of income. So I guess if you weren't very charitable, you scored low on that list.
Yeah.
You can read for yourself with the details of where they got the stuff for lust. Vanity was tanning salons, plastic surgery, Google searches. Laziness is about not exercising. Weekly hours worked, volunteer rates, time spent watching TV. So
well, that's good. Good methodology.
Yeah,
there you go.
I probably would score pretty
That's
badly
solid.
on some of this too. Honestly,
yeah, no.
so
yeah, we're all going to hell.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Dean. What's your first tech bite?
So, well, and maybe we got some tech to figure some of this stuff out, though.
Okay.
Whenever I see an MIT technology review, I'm all in, right? And so the article that I saw and what's got me interested here, 10 technologies that matter the most right now, right? That's what this is all about. So I'm going to rattle them off real quick, and then we'll dive into some of these. CRISPR for cholesterol, AI that makes images. We've been there. Chip design that changes everything. I'm going to dive into that one. Mass market military drones. That one scared me.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll touch on that one
too.
for just a second. Abortion pill via telemedicine. Organs on demand. These are human organs on demand. Interesting. The inevitable
like
EV.
to order up a liver, please.
Yes, right? The inevitable electric vehicle. Yeah, we all know that that's coming. James Webb, we talked about that. Game-breaking, breathtaking images that are coming from there. Ancient DNA analysis, trying to go back into our genome sequencing and see what's going on there. And then battery recycling, all are in the top of the list. So I'm going to dive into just a couple of them.
Okay.
CRISPR for high cholesterol. I've always been fascinated by this gene editing tool called CRISPR and how it's going to start advancing. You heard a couple years ago, this is going to be one of those changes that, 5-10 years hence, it's going to be like, how did we even live before that? Well, one of the stories that they pulled out is last year, a New Zealand woman became the first to receive a gene editing treatment to permanently lower her cholesterol. The woman had heart disease along with inherent risks and stuff like that, but scientists behind the experiment treatment think that it could help pretty much anyone. And I would agree with that. As one that has high cholesterol, I'm like, can I start
taking some medication for myself?
Can I start snipping up my genes so that we can get this in place? So
shove that new sequence right in there.
It's okay if parts of my forehead start blinking or something like
whatever,
that. I'll take that. As
if I get to live 10 years longer, sure.
100%. So that one's fascinating to me. Now they still think it's in the 10 to 15 year, which is a little depressing, because they have timelines of when some of this stuff would be actually effective. I'm hoping it's even sooner than that, but I know it's got to go through a lot of trials and stuff like that. But man, I'm telling you, CRISPR is one of those things that anytime I see an article on, I'm like, ooh, yeah. All right,
changing the game of medicine.
Changing the game for sure. Something getting a little closer to us is chip design. I was unaware of this.
Yeah, I was too.
So it's called RISC-V, and it's spelled RISC-V. And that is a new open standard for chip building that is now in place. And you would think to yourself, okay, well now if there's a new standard, the big guys are going to be against this, like the Intels are going to be against it. They're not. There's actually a new consortium that's 3,100 members worldwide, including companies and academic institutions that are collaborating to make this RISC-V international standard, if you will. And it's already in place. Intel's actually put $1 billion behind the fund to help support this. But the whole game changer here is that I guess, through its compute, when you open up the architecture, you enable basically crowdsourcing around it, and it can speed up things like, just from basic, computing like earbuds and trying to get them to connect to your phone and stuff like that to bigger picture stuff. But again, I was unaware of this happening, but it's happening right now. The new chip design that's called RISC-V. So
sounds like you're basically opening up chip design to the masses of sorts,
absolutely,
like to a lot more people and a lot more companies.
100%, which is pretty cool. And so the last one I'm going to touch on is this mass market of military drones. I'm thinking to myself, okay, I get it. America's got our drones. No, apparently like Turkey. Turkey has come out with what they call the Bayraktar TB2. We'll call it the TB2, which is like a $30,000 drone that apparently anyone in the world can buy. They'll sell it to anybody. But now you have this drone. $30,000, you put a couple missiles on it, maybe outfit it with a laser finder, so you got to do some upgrades. But for relatively cheap, you've got a drone that you can fly.
Less than a car could potentially cost you.
Bingo. And it's got 185 mile range, so your operator can be 185 miles away and do damage using right. It's like one of those things. Is like, this is not a technology that I was hoping.
Not for mass production kind of thing.
No. Yeah, but apparently we're there, and we've been been there for a little bit, but if you look at what's happening in the Ukraine right now, Iran, they're developing military drones at these cheap prices that they don't care who they sell it to, type of a thing. So that's one of those Debbie Downers, but it's one of those. It's like, oh man, didn't think about that. Yeah. So we're gonna have to up our game, I think, on jamming and stuff. Can you imagine this
detection?
We can't detect a balloon. How are we gonna detect a military drone flying over? We need the good people in Montana. Hey, there's something up in the sky.
Yeah, no
there.
doubt. Yeah,
that's how that went down, by the way, which is just alarming to me. But so anyway, those are some technologies that they're keeping an eye on that they're going to have an impact in the near future. Pretty interesting, right?
Yeah, I agree. Definitely.
Right. There you go.
All right, let's talk a little about the 4-day work week.
Yeah,
which is one of these ideas I feel like has been kind of bantered around for a long time.
You got evidence here? What's going on?
There are other countries that have kind of implemented it. There are sometimes companies that do it too.
Why not 3? Why not 2? We'll get into that in a second.
Why not none? Just give me some cash. Yeah. Well, apparently Kickstarter had actually implemented it with their company. They're among 200 companies in the U.S., Canada, and Australia, and New Zealand that have joined 4-Day Week Global, a nonprofit dedicated to helping companies reduce their work weeks down to 32 hours. That's an important distinction there, too, because I think a lot of times we talk about the 4-day work week. Most people say, like, fine, I'd be willing to work 10-hour days in order to have my Friday off or Monday off or whatever, have a day of the week off. Yeah. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about making everyone work longer every day in order to have the extra day off.
Got it.
But actually having a regular work day, a regular amount of time in your work day, but actually still
an 8-hour day.
Right, still getting that time off. Yeah.
All right.
So as part of this discussion, they had a talk with, this is from a website called EBN, which had a discussion with Terry Van Doyen, who's the director of product management at Kickstarter, basically to kind of get her insight about what it's like working a 4-day work week, what she deals with, kind of chronicling what a typical week is like for her. And she says that she's actually working fewer hours than she was before, but the intensity of the days that I work has increased. She's still having Fridays completely off has been a great trade-off for that. So basically what she kind of talked about is that like when she does her work days, typically Monday and Tuesday are her busiest days. She fills them up with a lot of meetings. Now granted, this is someone also that has a lot of meetings. I think she says she crams in like 30 meetings in a week or something, which just sounds like an absolute nightmare to me. But that's usually her busy days. And it's also days where her schedule is set up in a way and her flexibility is in a way where she doesn't mind working later those days. And again, also, Kickstarter has not said like you're not allowed to work Fridays. They've simply said, look, we want you to take Fridays off if that's okay with you.
Gotcha.
But you can work Friday if you want to. Like if you feel like you need to keep caught up on your work and you need to do the work, that's fine.
Well, for sure.
But we're simply saying,
just like you
only have to do a 4-hour.
If you work a 40-hour, but you got some whatever, you got an audit coming up, and you're gonna work 50 hours that week or 60.
Exactly, whatever the work entails, especially if you're a salary.
But the default there is 32 hours working 4 days.
Exactly.
Got it.
So she says she prefers to work into the evenings. She said though that she does prefer to work into the evenings rather than push that work to Friday, even though no one's preventing them from doing so. Now, as far as the actual work week too, the way it's structured, she says that on Thursday is kind of like her new Friday. So it's the day when she feels like she kind of winds down her work, finishes up some projects, doesn't do quite as many meetings, and basically starts preparing for her work for the next week. And then she said the important thing that she learned here too was to not treat Friday like just another weekend day. Like it's not just another day off to just goof around or do whatever, but a day where she like capitalizes on the idea like, hey, I've got time off to do things that I need to do on a day when other people aren't necessarily doing that. So she makes a point out of running errands and out of doing the kind of
store,
stuff that is a little harder to do on a weekend because a lot of other people are doing it, and maybe focusing on doing that stuff on Friday, and then potentially giving herself more time on the weekend. And I think that kind of fits nicely with where a lot of us are with remote work anyway, which is having a little more of that flexibility in your day to do some stuff maybe locally that you couldn't do when you had to travel to work. Like, I don't know, whether it's picking up groceries on your lunch break or getting an appointment done first thing in the morning, locally that you couldn't do when you had to go to work otherwise. So to me, it's kind of like just an extension of what people are doing with remote work, except condensing it into this 4-day work week instead. So what do you think about this? Do you think this is something that would work? Because like I said, usually what I feel
I'm not sold
when
yet.
we talk about this, it's usually more of the I work 10-hour, four 10-hour days.
Oh, right.
Because I have to get my 40 hours still.
Yeah.
And I'm also curious, and they really don't get into this too, like, what does this mean from a pay perspective? Like, are companies paying less because you're working less, or is pay staying the same? I don't know.
Well, so what's conflating to me is, okay, so the first question in my mind is, where does this end? So you're jamming a 32-hour work week into 4 days. Got it. where does that compression stop? Or is it acceptable that, like maybe in the future we're only working one day and everything that you just described, like, oh, my mornings are really busy, right? I'm getting all my stuff done, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end of the day, I wind down and now I've got 6 days off. I mean, is that, so where does that end? And what does that mean as far as, your life cycle and working and getting meaningfulness out of your job and stuff like that? So I'm questioning in my mind, where does the compression end? Does it stop at a 4-day work week? Why would it stop there? Why not a 3-day work week?
Yeah. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, the business has to decide what is useful for their business.
Well, yeah, I mean, you'd have to, I don't know what the right word is, make elastic the economy to accommodate that. But because if you need 4 workers now, if I go down to I know I'm being on the extreme, to like a 1-day work week, you'd need 4 workers to do the same amount of work as the one, right? In theory, to get the hours done. So I don't know. I'm just curious about where that compression stops, because I think that everybody, what we learned in the pandemic and what this is illustrating to me is that in a 40-hour work week, okay, maybe there's only 30 hours worth of work, right? But she's admitting she's compressing all that into 4 days, whereas maybe there was a little bit of fluff time in everyone's given day, a work day, like around the lunch hour or something, like whatever it might be, but all that's getting compressed now so that it's like a high quality or high velocity, I don't know, for lack of a better word, that you're working during those 4 days. And then, I get the benefit of that, that 5th day being off. Yeah. And then she's benefiting by the fact that they get to do all the things that we can't do. That we're working 5 days a week. So I don't know, man. Those are the things that are like mixed in my mind around the whole thing.
This is one of those things that I do feel like a lot of employers just will never, ever get on board with. But then again, we also said the same thing about remote work up until a few years ago.
But it's a societal, to me, it's more of a societal question. What would people do with 3, 4, 5 days off? I don't know. Yeah. What are you doing now? Are we spending more time volunteering? Are we, you gotta, idle hands, or, you just don't want people just sitting around. Yeah. That was Wall-E, right?
I think you're true. And I think about stuff like, okay, for instance, for me, like when I work a regular 5-day work week, the weekend, there's always like half of one of my weekend days that's consumed with getting the house clean and tidying up.
Your
cleaning
to-do
up,
list.
doing laundry.
That's right.
If I got to do lawn work, yard work, run errands or whatever, you're typically consuming half or maybe even an entire one of your weekend days doing that. I do like the idea of being able to say, hey, you know what? Rather than essentially having to do the work that life involves, which, and devoting an entire one of your weekend days to that, which means you essentially only then end up with 1 to 1.5 day of actual leisure time. I like the idea of being able to say, like, hey, I now have another day where I can take care of that stuff. Now, granted, that's going to depend on the person, whether they make 100%. The most out of that, obviously. 100%. But it's like, it's no different than, whether you make the most out of your weekend, too, or what you do with that as well. Yeah. Or, for that matter, your actual work week, too. Because, again, you can give some people all the time in the world to get their work done, and somehow they cannot do it.
Can't do it
in 8 hours a day, 9, 10 hours a day, 4 or 5 days a week. They still somehow can't do it. That's right. It's going to vary per person, I think. Yeah. I don't know. To me, this just kind of feeds into the overall conversation we're having about flexibility and about putting more back to the worker to kind of figure out what the work-life balance is for them. And I think like a lot of it has to do with breaking sometimes out of this idea. And it's why, to me, reading this and seeing that it was a 32-hour week she was working kind of made me stop for a second and go, well, that's weird.
That's weird.
Because, again, we've ingrained ourselves in this idea that a work week has to be 40 hours. Damn it.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, if you're not working 40 hours, you're lazy. If you're working more than that, well, you're either extra productive or you're working too hard or something like that.
And you're making the rest of us look bad.
Yeah, it's a very arbitrary number we've somehow created to decide that
I mean, I don't know.
The right amount of work has to be done within 40 hours. Whereas
it's all around the 7-day work week, right? And having the Sabbath on Sunday, and then
of course.
And then what are you going to do the rest of the 5 days?
Something we came up with potentially, decades, even 100+ years ago.
If we were farmers 400 years ago, I mean, we're working every day. There is no such thing as a 40-hour work.
But that's my point, is like the idea that, like, look, in this whole like work-life balance thing, I think the employers that are going to succeed sometimes and do well sometimes are the ones who don't necessarily say, like, look, we're not putting a confined restraint on exactly when you have to be doing something. It's a matter of are you getting the job done we've asked of you? If your job is X and you can do all of X that we ask you to do in any given week in 4 days, what do I care? Versus rather somebody that needs the 5 days.
I don't know. Some employers will say, okay, you're doing X, and now we're going to do X plus.
I know. That's just it. That's the problem. That's the problem you run into.
Or
because
X minus.
Because the employer looks at it and goes
done.
well, if you're doing everything I asked of you to do in 4 days, then I expect you to do 20% more.
We're not solving
by doing
the problem.
extra day.
That's
we're
right.
not.
We're not.
You're
We're
just,
not.
It's an endless loop, I think you get into of the expectation of the employer versus the employee. And
see what we've built. Yeah.
But if you need someone to try out the 4-day work week, I'm happy
are
to
you
volunteer.
in? Okay, you're in.
I'll be happy to volunteer.
So we keep talking about AI, right? Just to
Yes.
shift gears a little bit here. And so I came across a couple discussion topics on AI that I thought were kind of fascinating. First off, they asked a bunch of workers, what tasks should AI take over, right? So we talk about AI taking over the world, right? Am I even going to have a job tomorrow? I don't know, because AI could do marketing and whatever and stuff like that. So according to workers, AI would be best served, number one thing, data processing. And that makes sense, right?
Yeah, it does.
That's good. Automating digital tasks, I'm down with that. Information discovery. Now that one was an interesting one for me. I really wasn't thinking about that. I guess what they're saying here, what workers are saying, is use AI to develop intelligence or business intelligence or information. I don't know. I don't know exactly what they were looking for out of there. Mistake reduction is number 4. Which makes a lot of sense. How can we use AI to make things more efficient, operationally, and stuff like that, to mitigate mistakes?
Right.
We've had that on the program where there's machine vision that can improve the safety of a facility, right? Because they can determine, hey, no hard hats on here, or whatever it may be.
Right.
So using AI for that, really good stuff. And then all the way down at the bottom of the list, though, here is problem solving, which I actually thought would be kind of towards the top of the list. Like, what are we using the AI to do?
Right.
Solve problems.
Right.
So I don't know. Maybe there's.
I guess it depends on how you define what problem solving is.
Yeah. So any takes from you on that short list before I go to the other one?
I thought this all seemed pretty standard.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that folks were looking at this about like, look, it's not about replacing workers on the basic day-to-day tasks that they do. And I know we've had a lot of talk about this. We're going to be talking about it more. I've referenced a few times. We have Jody Costa coming on in a couple weeks to talk about marketing and where that fits in the whole AI picture, because that's one of the areas where people were like, "Well, we can get rid of you," right? So this was I thought this was actually a good list to me. Like everything on this, like, yes, this makes sense. That this is the kind of stuff that it makes sense to be able to figure out some way to automate and use computers to elevate our work in some way.
Yep. All right. So the next one is, I have to go here. So now you're talking AI research. So AI research is important. And so this company quantified the fact that, what countries out there are doing artificial intelligence research, because their argument is research leads to solutions is one way to look at it, or whatever, outputs of software and things of that nature. So, of course, when you look at it back in 2000, the U.S. was the most dominant person or country that was developing AI research. 2010, you started to see a leveling of the playing field. And then when you look back last year, in fact, the U.S. is still dominant with 150 research papers, if you will, or materials created, but China is right behind us at 138. So the whole thing here is China's race towards AI research dominance, and what is that going to mean for the future, right? So they're investing, and it's just a more clarification that they're pouring dollars into AI and its capabilities, and so we need to be aware of that, right? And so there you have it. It's kind of written in stone, if you will, that they're doing a lot of research around it. So interesting.
Yeah, I thought so too. There's two good articles to dig into there.
Yeah, it just quantifies my personal fears.
Exactly. The whole anything we can do, they can try to do better.
They're gonna do better. Yeah. Exactly. So back to the workers.
All right, let's talk about the workers again. Let's talk about remote work in particular again here. So it was an interesting article I came across. Basically, it was a kind of a LinkedIn prompt that linked to a few different articles about remote work and cities basically that are trying to take advantage of the idea of remote work and figure out how it can
I
help
remember
their city
that.
out.
Like when
So-
COVID first hit, right? There were like some cities saying, hey, come and work here.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
Tulsa in particular is one of they cited. And they've
Ah.
done some actual research on this and have some conclusions around it.
All
So
right.
so dozens of cities tried instituted incentives to lure remote workers amid the pandemic as many businesses shifted toward a remote working model.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most successful was a program in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They have paid about 2,000 remote workers each $10,000 to move to the city for 1 year. So that year is up, and apparently the program worked. So about 90% of the participants are staying in the area, and with a recent Harvard Business School study finding that participants even have higher real incomes than they did before the move. Meanwhile, every dollar invested in the program created $13 of local economic activity for Tulsa.
Whoa.
So
So 2,000 people took
2,000 people
okay,
took
all right.
advantage of this, where they paid them $10,000 to move
Interesting.
into the city limits of
Yeah,
Tulsa,
yeah.
and basically said, "Hey, we're asking you to do this just for a year." And it was up to them. When the year's up, if you want to go
Sure.
elsewhere,
Yeah.
because again, it's a remote work where it didn't matter where they lived.
Yep.
But basically, Tulsa was trying to invest in like, hey, come here,
Yep.
enjoy what our city has to
And I
offer,
get
the
that.
benefits.
That all
it
seems
does.
about right.
It
Yeah.
makes sense, and I suspect more cities will probably try to do that as a way to lure folks in that
Yeah.
are able to work remotely. And
Yep.
where it doesn't matter where they're living at, they can still do their work. And having a financial incentive behind it, and again, obviously it paid off with the fact that like, hey, we've suddenly got 2,000 new families that are living here that are contributing to taxes, that are contributing to local economy.
Well, right. And
are-
so that stat makes sense. So it's for the 10,000 they invested, they saw $1 for 13. So $130,000 worth of
Exactly.
economic. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, why wouldn't
I
you?
mean,
go for that
you're
kind
buying
of growth?
groceries, you're doing this, all that stuff is happening there.
Yeah, so a little
good
bit
for
interesting. I'm
Tulsa.
curious if you're going to start seeing more of a trend of that kind of stuff. Now, granted, we're also in this weird space now where the remote work thing is
maybe not
leveling
so
back
remote.
off.
Yeah.
There's a lot more employers that are asking for hybrid, so there's not as many remote jobs. Although still, from the last jobs report stuff I saw, like remote work is still in high demand.
Oh, for sure.
And there's still a lot
Yeah.
of interest. There's just not as much being offered now as
So
before.
do you think these digital nomads, the people that are roaming the earth, they can work anywhere and they're gonna, and that's their mantra. They're never gonna go to an office place
Right.
before. I get it. So do they start leveraging that, and they're gonna start going to these cities and municipalities and say, "Hey, you want me to live here? What you got for me?"
Yeah,
What
I don't
you
know.
got for
I
me,
could
brother?
see there
Yeah.
being start being tax incentives that maybe get built into stuff like that.
I could see the
but-
game starting here, and then they'll all start getting together. Oh, Tulsa, they're offering 10 grand. No,
Right.
You're gonna want to go to whatever Park City, Utah. They're offering 11
I would think
grand.
eventually that will dry up, and it's more of like a for now let's try to do it. But I think it will incentivize some cities, especially smaller cities and communities and places that are trying to bring in more, more folks in, to migrate in and to live there. I think it will incentivize them to remodel the way their city thinks in order to attract, folks from outside. And I don't know, like I said, I think it's something, one of those kind of things I'm sure like travel and tourism and, the desire to bring in, outside workers or whatever without having to invest in bringing in brand new business necessarily. It's like we don't have to build 10 new factories to bring in more workers here. We just
Right.
need to make the place an attractive place for people to live.
Right.
Regardless of where they're
Well,
working.
it's obviously going to pull through restaurants and hardware
right.
stores and things like that, right?
Yeah,
that
if
people
nothing
consume.
else, I guess it would make potentially that city more attractive for businesses then to set up shop.
Yeah.
To
Manufacturing or whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. Whether not necessarily to employ folks there, but to give people there, like something exciting, make it an exciting place to live.
Very interesting. Yes, yes. I'm trying to think of some other incentives, like if I was in a podunk town in the middle of Ohio, because I can't give you $10,000.
Right.
But what
Yeah.
can I offer you? Free ice cream?
I
from
don't know.
from
Maybe it's
Chuck's Ice
maybe
Cream
it's
down
free
there?
Wi-Fi.
Free Wi-Fi.
Maybe yeah.
Free land or
Free
something
land,
like
to
that.
build on. Maybe some kind of housing credit or whatever. Transportation.
Get a piece of America for all those that are renting in New York City, but they can be digital nomads. Come get a slight. Interesting. Well, that segues very well, my friend, into my
There you go.
next, which is the migration. I stumbled across an article on where Americans are moving, and this migration that has been happening over certainly since COVID. But they did the Census Bureau or the survey here recently, so they have the statistics out there. And over the last couple years, basically kind of zeroing in on the pandemic. They looked at where people are choosing to go.
Right.
Florida topped the domestic net migration chart with an influx of 319,000 people choosing to call that state their new home in 2022 alone. Right. So like there saw like a 1.5, well, almost 2% population increase. Texas is coming in at number 2. They saw a lot of folks. And then, as we've talked about, so where are they coming from? Well, that would be New York and California, where those both saw, on average, well, total coastal dwellers are saying 600,000 people left New York and California and dispersed into other areas. So kind of interesting. And then you get into the whole, well, why? Why are people moving, right? And I don't. What's your take here? I'll rattle off 3.
I would assume cost of living is a big part of it. Yeah.
Well, when you look at it, so it's the sunshine states that got all these. That's where people are moving to. I mean, if you look at the top, the top scale of where these people are moving, it's like the Sun Belt, right? Those are where all these people are going to. So why is it? Well, maybe jobs,
right?
Weather. Different COVID policies is part of the argument here. Obviously, the southern states didn't have the restrictions that we saw on the coast. And then I don't know, is it politics? So what do you think?
I'm sure. I mean,
all of that's in there, right?
It's pretty, because again, to your point, you look at New York and California and what they represent from, like you said, from the COVID standpoint, a political standpoint, cost of living, types of jobs.
Yep.
And then Texas and Florida, for example, being two of the biggest ones that gained.
Yep.
Very, again, polar opposites on all of those particular spectrums.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure that probably had something to do with it. Some folks that were like, look, I don't want to be here. I don't like what I value and what matters to me is not what I'm experiencing here.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to these other states that give me what I respect.
So I'll rattle off the top 10. Florida, Texas, these are where people move to. Florida, Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, Arizona, Idaho.
Yeah. Say a lot of southern stuff there, and then randomly
Idaho.
Yeah.
And then where are people leaving? Number 1, California, New York, Illinois, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Louisiana is in there for some odd reason. That was an anomaly, right? Maryland, and then Pennsylvania. So very interesting. Now you got some data, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of talk about people are moving, and New York City's dying, and all these kinds of things.
I'm sure there are any number of think pieces and extra data you could dig into to talk about that stuff that would be very interesting and illuminating.
Yeah. So there you go. That's putting kind of a bow around our whole. Yeah. So it's going to be a 4-day work week that we're moving to Florida or Texas,
and they're going to pay us a bunch of money.
And they're going to pay us money to go down and get
there and work
remotely. I love it. All right. So last one I got here is. And this is kind of cued on by the Netflix changing of thine policy.
Yes.
Are you of course you're a Netflix guy.
I'm a Netflix user, yes, of
Do
course.
you share your password?
I don't.
You don't? Miles isn't at the stage yet where...
Well, I've got because here's the thing. You can set up family profiles as it is. Like I have a profile for Miles and for my wife.
Yes.
That they can use wherever
wherever
they are anyway.
That's right.
Now, we did at one point have a profile set up for my mother-in-law as well to tap into our Netflix.
That's right.
But that has been closed off for some time, actually.
Well, I don't know. There was
already some restrictions.
They're
on
sniffing devices. Like I'm in the different boat than you are. I've got 2 kids that are out of the house.
Right.
And so, hey, what's the Netflix password? I get the text.
Right.
And I send it to them. So now they can determine Netflix and, where's your home? Right. So here's my home. Any other IP or whatever, they're going to shut that down.
Yeah.
And I think, did they do it already?
Well, here's the thing.
Haven't gotten
I don't think they haven't actually implemented this yet. But what's interesting is after announcing this policy and having stuff on their website about it, they've already taken down most of the language around it. And I think a big part of it, I haven't really dove too far into this because, again, it's not something that's super relevant or matters to me at the moment. But I think a big part of this has been because a lot of people pointed out, look, there's a lot of people that travel. Yes. There's a lot of people that maybe have to live somewhere else for periods of time.
That's right.
I know when I'm out traveling sometimes, I might tap into my Netflix on a plane.
They want you to
do
it at the hotel, by the way.
Right.
I like it'll pull up. What's your Netflix?
And now they've said hey, this isn't an issue because that's a device thing. As long as it's you can tap in, I think for up to 30 days at a time from another location on the device.
Okay, all right.
But some people point well, what if that's not enough? Basically, people are putting a lot of what if scenarios
yes.
that they clearly have not necessarily accounted for.
Yeah.
So it seems like they're sort of backpedaling a bit. Like I get why they wanted to do it because I know this article pointed out like they've lost
9.1 billion.
Yeah.
In password shares is what they're estimating, right?
Exactly. That's a lot of money, obviously.
Well, I get it, but raise the fee. Just raise the fee.
Which they have. I mean, they've been raising fees pretty consistently over the years. They've continued to do so pretty regularly. Most of the streamers have, like I know Disney raised theirs, HBO Max recently raised theirs. Most of these streamers are raising their fees.
Well, and so you look at the list here. So Netflix at the top, they think they've lost $9 billion. Disney Plus has lost $3 billion. Prime's lost $3 billion.
And Disney's
basically.
barely been around by comparison.
Yeah.
A scratch on the surface of how long Netflix has been in business.
Did you get this other one though? Here's the other pullout that rubbed me the wrong way the other way. So one survey from the last year suggests piracy may be something the industry has to deal with, right? A little bit longer, with nearly 1 in 4 people justifying piracy because they simply believe, quote, movies and music should be available to everyone for free.
Yeah, this one was BS. Like that's the I've never been the piracy person. Like I've just never been the person to do BitTorrent and all that crap.
But anyway, see, Marco. Yeah.
Like it's never been my jam. I've just never been someone that traveled in that particular circle.
Were you the guy in the movie theater, like recording it secretly?
Not even remotely. Did not even.
You remember that Seinfeld one?
Yeah,
that was a great one.
It's never been my particular jam, and I understand people do it, and I get obviously.
Look, I'm with it. Pay the artist what they're due.
Right, and I also understand that like these streaming services and stuff are ridiculous. It's starting to get expensive. Like if you were someone who the whole idea was you cut the cable cord, and I did that myself years ago to focus on streaming services.
But now I've got all these streaming services.
Yeah, all the streaming services you have. Like I'm at the point now where I've got 7 or 8 different streaming services.
I'm back to where I was.
For, and it's not quite, but roughly the same amount that I was paying. Getting close to that. And I get that that's a frustration. And I also understand from the streamer's point of view where they're starting to, lose money. Because a lot of them, I think for a long time, the streaming companies, their whole goal was we just want subscribers. We want as many subscribers as possible.
That's right.
And I know like Disney in particular.
That monthly income.
Right. Disney in particular really took note of this because they recently, if you heard, fired their CEO, Bob something or other, to bring back Bob Iger, who was their previous CEO from years ago.
Yeah.
They brought him back in, and a big part of what he's wanting to do is revamp the streaming side of their business. And as he points out, like, look, we've spending a ton of money on all this high quality streaming content, which I've been grateful for. It's been amazing stuff.
We talk about it,
But he's also noted, like, what is that really getting us? If all we care about is subscribers, what is that really getting us at the end of the day when we just have a certain number of subscribers we're pointing to? And instead looking at like, how are we actually, because a lot of these streaming services aren't necessarily gaining revenue off of their subscribers. Like just because you get 1 million new subscribers every year doesn't mean you're actually getting that much more money when you think about how much money you had to invest in order to get high quality productions to draw people to your service.
For sure.
So I think that a lot of these streamers are going to start thinking about that. Plus, and we talked about this, I think we talked about this in our kind of year preview thing, that Hollywood is starting to get a little bit of a reckoning about this, about how performers and behind the scenes folks and writers and directors and producers, how they get paid for content that goes to streaming or doesn't go to streaming.
That's right.
So I think you're kind of getting this huge clash here that's going to change this up in some way, where I think a couple things may happen. One is I think you might start seeing some consolidation where you're going to see like, Netflix and HBO Max merge or something like that. You might start seeing some mergers. You're going to see some price points probably start going up, package deals of some sort happening. Like I think we're going to find ourselves in a situation that might not make some people happy, but will at least maybe hopefully solve some of these problems.
I think they're getting there though. So I was listening to another podcast and I'm just now connecting the dots. So a song that was written, the number 1 song in 1979, My Sharona. So they talked about the economics behind that song.
Right.
Today, how much do you think the writers of My Sharona make on royalties for that
Probably
song
next
per
to
year?
nothing.
It's not.
Yeah.
They make about $300,000 a year on that song. I think that's a lot of money. And the guy was like, no, we're pretty good with the amount of money we're making on a song we wrote 20 whatever 4 years ago. No, 20. 40 some odd years ago. And they went through the whole economics of it and how they're getting paid and the royalties on the different levers that they can get and stuff like that. So even, a number 1 song like that, it's still, now it's been in a lot of movies and blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. I think they're getting there to getting those folks paid. But at the end of the road, it's the streaming services that you got to pay to get to make that happen.
But then you get the folks, like I said, that clearly are sitting out there saying, like, I think everything should be free for everyone. Yeah.
Well, 1 in 4 apparently, and that's wrong.
Why do you think anyone wants to make some music or make some art or make a TV show or a movie that you don't have to pay for?
Yeah, there's got to be economics.
How do they get paid to do that work? Like, I mean...
Otherwise, you're just going to have street performers.
Yeah, like, are you going to do your job for free? Do you expect to get nothing in return, or expect what you do to add up to nothing?
Yeah, I'm with you. I cannot connect to that mind frame. Like, oh no, it should all movies and music should be free. What?
Yeah, that part's absurd.
The last part of that article was interesting though, because they graphed out Google search for quote watch movies online for free, right? So that was the search, and they quantified the search volume. Apparently, that phrase "watch movies online for free" peaked in 2010 when Avatar was released, which was the most pirated movie ever. Yeah.
And then you had Game of Thrones, which I think was the most pirated TV show.
Oh, okay.
For a long time. Fair enough. Too. Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that stuff's it's interesting. And my thing with like the piracy thing too is usually like when you pirate stuff, you get much lower quality than you would get by actually watching
not 4K, dude.
In a theater or on a streaming service or something. And that's where I kind of draw the line. Like, look, I don't want to watch something that looks like it was filmed with a camcorder, a shaky camcorder.
Like no matter how bad I want to see it.
Yeah, exactly. Like
I'll save up my bucks.
Yeah, it's not worth it. And granted, I'm speaking from a position of some privilege where I can afford to, pay for all these services and do this stuff.
Maybe it's the hate. Is it the haters out there that hate like Hollywood? And I don't necessarily. Anyway, it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. I think we solved some problems here.
I think we did. That's our Tech Bites. Hopefully you got some interesting tidbits and articles and things you can talk about. Like I said, as always, check out the show notes. You can always find all the links to all this stuff we've talked about if you want to dive in and read a little deeper. But hey, if you've got some ideas about what we talked about, if you have your own feedback, if you have your own commentary on it, if you have your own Tech Bites.
Or I have a Tech Beef that I'm going to give you on the flip side.
Okay, all right. Yeah, if you got some Tech Beefs to share, we need to do another Tech Beefs episode.
There you go.
Although sometimes I feel like our bites evolve into beefs. So
this is true.
If you've got that kind of stuff, we need you to share it with us. We want to know whether it is leaving us a comment on our YouTube channel, letting us know what you thought about something there, whether it is reaching out and giving us suggestions through our link for topics. There's always a link in the show notes where you can suggest topics to us. If there's a cool article you came across that you want us to dive into and discuss, send it over to us. We're happy to hear about it. And just for doing it, we'll send you a T-shirt.
There you go. Boom.
You get a T-shirt just for sending
an
idea to us.
Just in time for spring and summer. Yeah, you're good to go.
Now, if you send us 10 ideas, we're probably not going to send you 10 T-shirts. Maybe we'll send you 2. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we got a few extra to spare, I suppose. So
we need to refresh.
There you go. Exactly. So don't hesitate to send that stuff into us. You can also always find us on Twitter at TEConnectPod or email us TEConnect@BlueStarInc.com. All right, Dean, let's wrap things up here. We always do our value to the VAR segment. And
I'm struggling with that one on this one.
Is there any of these stories, any relevant takeaways? I mean, I know we talked about technologies that are breakthroughs and, the whole work week stuff. I guess that could bring up some interesting conversations about how your work week is set up.
For sure.
We know whether your folks are doing remote work. But,
Yep. No, I mean, to me, it's just the indicators, right? AI is still on the horizon. I think we're starting to figure out, hopefully, where that's going to play. People certainly have their opinions of it. Work week is just one of those things that's going to continue to be evolving, right?
The whole chip thing, that might be very relevant to our industry.
For sure.
If chip manufacturing gets that much easier and simpler, then we won't get caught with our proverbial pants down.
That's right.
As we did, during the pandemic because, we couldn't get chips here,
So. And faster, more open compute power and the ability to enable a lot of these edge devices. Yes, that is something there.
Exactly.
There you go.
All right. Well, let's wrap up with basically another Tech Bite, which is our West Tech
I'm going beef.
segment.
I'm going beef first, and then I'll go TEConnecting with me.
Okay, let's hear. What's your Tech Beef?
So do you feel like you need an indoor drone to monitor your house?
No already, but...
So I don't know why
indoor drone.
Yes. So Ring has come out with, or they're launching soon, an indoor drone. Like literally, imagine it's a rectangular thing sitting on there, and then a drone pops out of it. While you are out of your house, this drone will fly around and monitor your house for you.
I mean,
I feel like
don't we already have cameras,
right? I mean, do we need a drone flying around?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Flying around your house. If you were an intruder, would that be enough to like?
Yeah,
oh my God, I hear a drone. Clearly, they've got a Ring drone.
Keep an eye out for it. Figure out when it's looking away from you and smash it with a baseball bat.
To me, this is one of those instances where maybe technology is going a little too far.
Yeah, I don't know.
We got drones. That's fine. That's cool. I'm worried about the military drone thing, like we talked about. But do I need one flying around my house? I don't know. I don't know, dude. So that's my beef.
Again, I mean, you just put a few cameras and sensors around. I mean, I've got the whole Ring security system thing, and it's just it's sensors, it's door stuff.
You got it. It's good.
I got some cameras.
You can instantly, wherever you are in the world, pull up your camera and say, that's my cat. Or whatever.
I don't need to know what's happening in my bathroom at any particular point in the day. You
need this thing flying around. It's not like it's not armed. Yeah. It's not going to shock people or anything like that. I mean, what does the mobility buy us here? I don't know. I'm really struggling. The only thing it could do is get caught up in a ceiling fan.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
Now you bought the technology.
Come home to drone wreckage every day.
Trashed already. All right.
Okay, I get that's a good beef. I like that.
So, do you think we live in here's my tech, connecting with me. Do we live in a corrupt society?
I mean,
do you think America's gone corrupt?
Let's put it this way. I don't know what I'm going to commit to. Like,
I
we're just corrupt in general.
I don't want your answer.
There's a lot of corruption. Let's put it that way.
All right. So there's corruption perception index that came out that tickled my fancy. I thought this was pretty interesting. So it's not actual, they're not trying to quantify corruption, but this is the perception of corruption. So what are the top ranked least corrupt countries? And this makes a lot of sense. They're all in the Nordics. It's Denmark, Finland.
They're always at the top
Norway,
of the happiness scales, top of the health scales.
Sweden, Switzerland, Netherlands. Germany is number 9. Ireland. So, if you live in that part of the world, although Singapore ranked really high. They're number 5 on least corrupt. So you're good to go. I'll give you the U.S. We actually didn't fare too bad. We're 35 or 39? 30-ish.
Out of what, 170 something?
We're 24. We're 24 out of 180.
180.
And I don't have the methodology. I know you're going to challenge me on that. I don't have it, but we're 24. So we're not a lot of corruption. The perception of not a lot of corruption.
Right.
Who's at the bottom? Somalia. Don't go to Somalia, dude. Wow, Syria, Venezuela, of course, North Korea. That's pretty corrupt. Like if you're not in with the family, you're nothing there. Haiti, which is one that's really close to us, that is a worry for us because Haiti's like melting down right now. And they got corruption issues. So interesting. You had a lot of Middle East where the culture is more, what I say, barter oriented.
Right.
A lot of Latin America and Middle East are kind of down towards the bottom, meaning more corruption happening there. So anyway, that was one that was connecting a little bit. Not a huge shocker, but
right.
Hey, when I saw a list of corrupt countries, I'm like, I wonder where we fall. Because everybody says we're corrupt.
Well, yeah.
Maybe not so much.
Yeah.
So what's TEConnecting with you, my friend?
So if you're looking for a nice way to save your company a lot of money, maybe start with your software licenses.
Oh, really?
So here's an interesting article from Tech Radar that basically said that businesses are wasting millions on unused software licenses.
This is probably true.
So this is a big new report. This was a very large report with a lot of data behind it. So they surveyed 6 million customers spanning 9 industries across 12 regions. This is a company called NextThink that looked at over 30 popular software tools and uncovered that 50% of all licenses are not being used.
50%.
50%. The cost for the unused licenses alone was said to be putting a $45 million drain on the companies every single month, which each year adds up to almost $537 million worth of wasted software. Now, they also pointed out that was just with taking the most baseline cost of a license, not including whatever like perks or extras the company might have layered on top to make it cost more each month.
Yeah.
So at a bare minimum, companies are wasting a combined $45 million on software licenses. Among the most commonly lapsed licenses were the likes of Tableau, Trello, the Notion app, Spotfire, and Blue Jeans, many of which I've not really heard of.
I've heard of most of those.
So
Blue Jean I've heard of.
Yeah.
Tableau, of course.
Trello I was familiar with, and Notion I'm familiar with.
And Notion, yeah. No, Trello I've never heard of. Okay,
so they noted that on the other end of the spectrum, Slack, Teams, Zoom, WebEx, Asana were all actively utilized. Makes sense.
Yeah,
suggesting that communications, video conferencing, work management platforms remain crucial to business operations.
Yeah.
So they also noted that a separate poll of 200 IT leaders found that only 5.5% of them claimed complete visibility into how many of their employees were actively using licensed software.
I believe that. Every like, whatever, within a company, every little branch or silo, everybody goes rogue and buys little software.
And I get it, because there are times when there will be a certain, maybe, software that I know we have access to, and I'm like, I've never used that. And I assume that someone is, but I think if you get a little granular and start digging in and find out, like, no one's not actually using this thing. Or the one person that is, they could be using something else that is costs a lot less.
It was 2 years ago. It's just recurring, right? It's just recurring billing. Somebody somewhere said, fine. It's like the golden dream is to get, if you're a software company, just get yourself wiggled in there at a low enough cost that it's off the radar, and you just keep that check. Just keeps coming in.
There's recurring revenue goes wrong there. So little tip, if you're looking to,
that's a good one.
Cut your bottom line a little bit, and maybe cut back on some operational expenses.
Yeah.
You get your
maybe
IT
as a
department
reseller,
nice
you should leverage that. Hey, my solution's a little bit too costly. Have you looked into your software licenses lately? I think you can save some costs there.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, hey, if you're talking to a customer, it's like, I don't know how I can fit this in my budget.
I gotta
maybe suggest them, like, hey, have you done an audit of the stuff that you are currently
the Notion,
paying for?
Yeah. Kill the Tableau. Save yourself some money.
There you go.
Good stuff, man.
That's what's TEConnecting with us, or beefing with us right now.
Beef.
Hey, hopefully you got some useful information out of all of this. You got some good water cooler talk.
Yes.
So until next time, unplug and move somewhere that'll pay you $10,000 to do it.
I'm in.
Man, sounds like a good gig to me. I mean, look, here's the thing, Dean. I'll give you 20% of whatever some city will give me if you'll let me go move and be remote and work from there.
Done.
That sound like a plan? Sweet.
Signed, sealed, delivered.
All right, that is now caught on a podcast. It is.
But you
is recorded.
You gotta keep coming back to the studio, though, dude.
All right, well, as long as you pay my flight expenses and stuff,
I see.
We can make this a month. We can make this a once a month thing. Just cram like 6 pods in one day or something. Sure, we'll do that. And as always, folks, please stay connected. TEConnect Podcast is brought to you by ELO. Enhance patient care everywhere that it matters. Patient care would matter everywhere, right?
Yeah, kind of.
If you got patients, you kind of want to care for them.
No matter where you are.
No matter where they are.
Yes.
You are, they are, whatever.
Yes. ELO's got you covered?
ELO do, yeah. They offer touchscreen product solutions for various healthcare applications, from nurse stations and patient education to patient check-in and pharmacy check-out. Streamline healthcare administration and enhance the patient experience with ELO's versatile solutions. If you're looking to build a continuum of care, touchscreen technology is vital.
Absolutely.
Among ELO's healthcare solutions are the M50 Android mobile computer,
nice,
the O3 series medical grade monitors, large format signage, all-in-one touch computers, and much more.
Front of house, back of house, they got you covered.
Yeah, exactly.
Even in the hand of the practitioner.
Exactly. Whatever you need, they got it. To learn more, visit ELO's microsite on BlueStarInc.com or contact your BlueStar account manager. TEConnect Podcast is also brought to you by Zebra. All right, Dean, the long-awaited potential of consistent and reliable RFID is here, and it's within reach.
Whoa.
Would you agree with that statement?
I would. Okay. We've been waiting for a long time.
So if you disagree, we might have a little bit of a problem.
Because we're there.
Zebra might have a beef with you.
Well, you were going to prove me wrong anyway.
Exactly.
Yes.
So
tell me how we're right.
Well, you can leverage Zebra's decades of expertise, design thinking, and software development to help your customers achieve maximum RAIN RFID efficiency while minimizing the pains of multi-vendor solutions. Now, unlike other players, Zebra gives you the industry's broadest field-proven RFID portfolio for unmatched accuracy and interoperability. Connect it all and create a platform that elevates every system, device, tag, and and Lorker. Now, with Zebra, you're powered by a brand that customers already know.
Absolutely.
It's
I mean, in RFID,
well
gold.
I was picking up groceries the other day. The guy loaded me up the back of my car, saw the Zebra umbrella that I've got back there.
Yeah.
And he's like, is that the same company that makes this little handheld thing I've got? I'm like, yes, sir. That's them.
Yeah.
A team of Zebra experts accelerates your sales process, there to help you earn your customers' business at every stage. Zebra RFID is ready to help you open doors and close sales. To learn more about Zebra's line of RFID readers and printers, visit the link in the show notes or contact the Zebra team at BlueStar.